Your most valuable asset for meal planning and making meals for your family, I think, are the things that you already have. Hello squad, welcome back to my channel. So one thing that I want to start doing on my channel every month is sharing a video about budgeting, specifically as it relates to meals. So if I come up with a new idea, a new way to do something, a new way to use something, I want to share that with you guys. So back in early January, it was actually just in those first couple days of January, I sat down and I made a list. And this is something that I do from time to time, especially when I'm getting ready for a grocery shop, is figure out what I have in each of these categories. But I took it a step further and checked to see how many meals I could just come up with where I didn't need anything, or maybe I only needed one or two things to complete that meal. So as you can see, I came up with 11 different meals, and I just thought I'm going to skip my big Aldi trip, and I'm just going to see if we can survive off of these meals that I have come up with. So when I say I made 10 meals for $15.95 for less than $16, of course it took much more than that, but the idea is you already have these things in your home, and your most valuable asset for meal planning and making meals for your family, I think, are the things that you already have. You know, if you think about, for example, chicken and steak. Steak is more expensive than chicken, but only if you don't already have steak at home. If you already have that steak and you've already purchased it, yes, it was more expensive when you bought it, but now that's something that you own. So instead of going out and buying something new, use the things that you have first. So if you watched my February reset video, then you will know that I kind of talked about skipping that grocery trip and why I did that. If you didn't watch that video, I will link it down below. But that was part of restarting the month, was looking at my grocery budget and looking at how I skipped this trip. And it is something that I plan to do at least once a quarter, if not more. So I'm just gonna take you through the month of January. I did chronicle 10 different meals that we made, and I'm just gonna talk you through those. And then any recipes that I have, I'm gonna link those down below. All right, so the first one is I showed you guys packing lunches. All right, so today is day one of using up everything that we have in the fridge, freezer, and pantry. So here's Abram's lunch. We had a leftover link of apple maple sausage, so he's having that with applesauce, and crackers and M&Ms. Andy is having some of the tenders from the freezer. I had a leftover one of these, so I put that in there. And then she's having some chopped up pears and oranges and crackers and then M&Ms. And then here is my wrap. So that was one of the things on my list. So it's just a flour tortilla with some ranch, 2 of those little tenders, some lettuce, and cheese. So I'm gonna roll this up and cut it in half. And then I also made myself a fruit salad of some of the pears and oranges. So that's gonna be our lunch today. So what I tried to do with lunches is really first use up things that we have. If we have things that the kids will eat that are more leftover type of things, then I will put those. I'm not above doing sandwiches, and you'll see why later on. But on that list, one of the things that I said was sort of like a snack wrap for lunch and a fruit salad. And that fruit salad was to use up some fruit that we had that was going bad. So instead of just wasting it, instead of throwing it out, I said, I wonder how I can kind of repurpose this. And so that day, Andy and I had fruit salads, and then I had a chicken wrap. The second one that I'm showing you is sweet potato and black bean hash. Tonight's dinner is sweet potato and black bean hash. So this is the recipe here. I got it from the Tasty app. So these are the ingredients. I follow it to a T, except for I add garlic powder. And then sometimes I do spinach, and then sometimes I don't. I didn't have spinach today, so I didn't do it. But this is what it looks like when it's done. Lots of beautiful colors. Usually it's red bell pepper, but today I used yellow. And I like to top it with soft-boiled eggs and avocado and lime, and then salt and pepper. So I'll show you what it looks like all together. This is one that I think I've mentioned from time to time. This is from the Tasty app, which is a great app. You can search by ingredient, by category, by diet, and it will show you different suggestions. And we have made this for years. We love it. It is also a vegetarian recipe, which is nice because that cuts down on your cost because you're not having to put meat in it. So this is definitely one that I love. So number 3 is a bit of a treat for me. I found this recipe on Pinterest actually. It's called TikTok ramen. I'm not on TikTok, I don't do TikTok, but that's kind of what it's known as. And you take the packet of ramen noodles, but then you throw away the seasoning packet and you turn them into this sweet and savory noodle mixture. So I did not actually film the process of making it, but I'm going to try and link that video down below that taught me how to make it. Over time I have tweaked with it and I've adjusted the types of sweeteners that I add. Sometimes I'll do soy sauce, sometimes I'll do coconut aminos, but then I always finish it off with scrambling an egg in there and then sprinkling some sesame seeds on top. And I will usually treat myself to this maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks. And my daughter likes it. It's kind of something that I enjoy eating, and it is a treat, but it's also fairly inexpensive to make. Number 4 is a roast in the crock pot. If you hear any crackling in the background, it's because we have the fireplace going on the TV. But today it is 10:30 in the morning and we have just gotten a roast in the crock pot. So this is a chuck roast. That was the only thing I had to buy for this recipe. No, take it back. I did also have to buy beef broth. But I had the carrots, I had the potatoes, and I had the soup mix. And Abram has been asking for roast. It's one of his, probably his favorite meal. So this is just gonna cook on low all day, and then it will shred with a fork, no problem. So I'll check back with you later and we'll see how it looks. Roast is expensive. It's an expensive cut of meat, but this will feed us for probably 2 meals maybe, at least like 1.5. So we probably do one maybe once a month. All right, it's almost 6 o'clock. Ooh, a lot of steam, a lot of steam. All right, let's see if this is tender yet. Yep, I would say that's a success. I will list this recipe down below. Can't remember if I told you what all's in it, but I will list it down below. It's very simple. It's pretty healthy for you. Not a lot of artificial stuff. So that is supper. So like I said, looking at that list, roast was one of the things that I had to purchase. And like I mentioned in the video, roast is a little bit more of an expensive cut of meat. You know, I could have just done chicken, but my family does enjoy it. So every now and again, we will do a roast, and then it just makes for a wonderful one-pot meal. Number 5, I included this one, I think, in a vlog where we did outdoor day, and I packed leftovers of this meal, and it was kind of do-it-yourself Chipotle. So I've mentioned I might do a video on this, but I have a great cilantro lime chicken recipe. I have a great corn salsa recipe that I actually came up with myself after painstakingly trying a copycat version of Chipotle's, and it turned out nothing like theirs. And then we always have it with rice and sour cream, and it is just one of my favorite things. The next one is red beans and rice. Andy helped me prep all of these ingredients. This recipe is from a Skinny Taste cookbook, so I can't actually link it here. It's not on her website, but it is a great savory recipe. And the only thing that I had to buy for that were the dried beans. Number 7 is why I said I don't really mind making my kids sandwiches. And if you have followed me for a while, you have seen me make this before, and it is a French toast casserole. So I usually cut my kids' sandwiches with cookie cutters or with my Pampered Chef cut and seal that I found thrifting. So that does cut off the crust, but it also cuts off a pretty substantial little chunk of the bread. So I just started saving these in a bag in the freezer, and then when I get enough, I make a French toast casserole. I will say this last one was much better than the first, and I think the 2 things to contribute to that were I used less eggs. Last time it was a little bit eggy. I think it called for 6 or 8 eggs total, and I might have used half of that this time. But the other thing that I noticed was there were more Nutella sandwiches in there as opposed to peanut butter. And for me, the peanut butter mixed with like the maple syrup flavor is a little bit sharp. I don't know if that's like the right way. Anyway, the flavors don't blend as well to me as the bits of Nutella do. So I will say that, but it's a great way, you know, I'm not throwing those things in the trash, and they are really contributing to this whole meal. It can be for breakfast or you can do breakfast for dinner. So that was number 7. Number 8. So I had put on that list that I was going to use my chicken thighs to make barbecue chicken. I don't often buy bone-in chicken. This was actually a mistake. I had meant to buy boneless, skinless thighs, and I was not paying attention to what I was adding into my cart one time, and I bought these. So I just stuck them in the freezer, and I thought I will deal with them another time. So I asked my sister, you know, what should I do with these? And she suggested a few things, and one of them was chicken and dumplings. And she suggested the frozen type of dumplings that you can just break up and put in the broth. So I considered that, but I thought I really don't want to buy anything. And I thought it can't be that hard to make dumplings. So sure enough, I found a recipe. It was very simple. I had all the ingredients. We rolled them out, we cut them with a pizza cutter, and the nice thing about this meal was that it was such a low cost meal. I put the thighs in a crock pot with water and I cooked them all day. And then once they were done, I took all of the meat off the bones, and then I actually strained that broth into my soup pot, and I used that broth for the chicken and dumplings. And I think sometimes I would be tempted to throw that out for whatever reason, but I thought there's no reason for me to open a box of chicken broth. I have chicken broth right here. So we did that. I made the homemade dumplings, and Brandon said that they tasted like what his grandma used to make. So that was like the ultimate compliment for me. So that was my first time doing that, and that will become part of our winter rotation because it was so good and comforting, and it was so easy, and it was so inexpensive. Number 9, I don't have a picture of it, but it was just fish sticks and mac and cheese. And you know, my message is just don't discount those easy things that you have in your fridge and freezer and pantry. You know, if you have a boxed dinner, you know, we don't do those a lot. It's not something that we try to rely on, but if you have those things, use those things, make a meal out of it, and you know, give yourself a break from time to time. So this was a night that I had Bible study. I vlogged that day, and Brandon actually took care of dinner for me that night, and that's what he made. And that was one night's dinner that I didn't have to pay for because I already had what I needed. And then number 10, I made little mini pizza pockets. So I had the ingredients to make a homemade marinara sauce, and then I had some leftover things from a charcuterie board. And so I actually used flour, and I'll put that recipe down below. I used flour and a few other ingredients to make a simple dough, and you just make it into little circles and then put your filling in, press it with a fork like you would any sort of little like hand pie, and prick it with a fork. But it really wasn't that hard to make. And then we dipped them in that homemade marinara sauce. So that was like a quick and easy lunch, and then we had leftovers a different day. So there were 3 things that I really noticed that I loved throughout this process. The first one is that it forced me to be creative. I think as the person who primarily makes the meals in the family, you know, if that's you, I think sometimes it can be overwhelming, or it can feel redundant or not exciting. And it kind of becomes this game of how many meals can I make from what I have. And like I said, some of the meals, most of the meals, I completely had everything, and then some things I just had to buy 1 or 2 ingredients. But instead of mindlessly saying I need to go on my normal $200 trip for 2 weeks, I can say maybe I only need to buy $16 worth of ingredients, and I can use up some of these things that I need to use anyway. If I were planning chicken and dumplings and I had a grocery trip planned that week, I might have just thrown the frozen dumplings in the cart, which would have been fine. But since I already had those ingredients, I challenged myself to make it myself, and it wasn't at all hard, and it was really delicious. Same thing with the pizza pockets. That's something that I would have maybe felt like was a little too involved or a little too labor intensive, and it really didn't take that much time, and I enjoyed it. It was a fun little thing. The second thing that this does is it fosters gratitude in my family. So my family knows, they've just kind of come to learn that we don't buy food on a whim just because we're in the mood for it. If that is something that we do, it is on a very rare special occasion. But if somebody asks for something and it's in the middle of when we've gone on that grocery trip and it's not time for another one, they've just become accustomed to, I'll get that the next time I'm at the store. And I think that that is hopefully going to bode well for us as we move into, you know, older kids, as we move into the teenage years, that they know that food costs are expensive, and it's not always instant gratification, and meal planning kind of saves me in that way. And then of course the third thing is that it reduces waste. I mentioned that I didn't pour out the chicken broth, but that I used that to make the dumplings. And then also just learning how to repurpose leftovers. I personally don't understand, my family would not survive if they said they didn't like leftovers, because there are so many ways that you can repurpose things. So for example, yesterday I put 2 pork tenderloins in the crock pot and I made carnitas. Last night we had them sort of as carnitas tacos, and I actually figured out that I could use that Pampered Chef cut and seal that I was talking about to make little mini tacos for the kids. And it helped them, but it also helped me because I didn't feel like they were wasting. Like I made them this big taco, they wouldn't eat it, but also it was like handheld and cute, and I think that they really enjoyed that. But I wanted to make sure that I didn't waste those little bits of tortillas, so I tossed them with olive oil and a little bit of seasoning, and now I have them in a container in the pantry to go on top of rice bowls or to go on top of salads, kind of as those little like tortilla strip things that you can buy. And that's just one example of learning how to not waste anything. So that particular recipe makes 2 pounds of carnitas, and I actually had a little bit more than that. So last night I just researched how to use leftover carnitas, because at this point we are out of tortillas and I'm not going to buy more. And I found so many creative ideas. I found, of course, making a rice bowl with them. I found making like a breakfast hash and using potatoes of some sort and adding eggs and spinach. I also found a wonderful looking carnitas soup that uses salsa verde. And I think that learning how to reduce waste and repurpose those leftovers is such a valuable tool in your meal making. All right guys, well that is all that I have for today. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you saw or heard something that sounded delicious, I will link it down below if I am able. Being smart with our money as it relates to groceries is just one way that I try to steward our money and really use the blessings that we have, and also just to bless my family and teach them gratitude as well. So I hope that you guys found this video helpful. If you are new coming to my channel, thanks for stopping by. You can click that red subscribe button. I try to put out 1 to 2 videos every week on a good week, and I just thank you for being here, and I will talk to you guys soon.